here today is my friend and colleague from the Miami show band, Des Lee. We had an engagement in Banbridge, in the Castle Ballroom in Banbridge, and there was always a great reception there. It was the middle of the summer.
That's right.
We had a good night in the Castle Ballroom, and I remember we had Irish stew, of all things,
At the end of the gig.
At the end of the gig.
Yeah.
And one of those rare occasions when our road manager, Brian Maguire, left before us.
Correct.
So we must have been taking it very easy.
We were talking to the fans, obviously signing autographs, talking to the fans. Basically what we did after every gig, as you know, Steve, we unwound, because you're on a high on the gig, obviously, for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you had to unwind. And Brian was one of these guys who loved to get packed up as quickly as possible and get home, and which he did, so he had gone ahead of us.
We left the Castle Ballroom, and there was a barrier in the street that we had to wait until the person lifted, because they had these security barriers.
Correct.
We could see Brian's taillights, so we were very close to him. But we were flagged down at Buskill, where the road to Buskill is about 7 miles from Newry, before we got to Newry. We were called in told to pull the van in. He was Brian McCoy, our trumpet player, brought the van into the side of the road, because these soldiers asked us to. They said they were going to do a security check. Without going into any of the details, it was a very, very cynical plan to make us look like terrorists. So while they were questioning us at the side of the road, they were planting a bomb under the front seat that we wouldn't have known about. They were going to tell us, "Off you go, guys," and they were very pleasant to us, weren't they?
Yes, at that time, yeah.
You weren't at all scared?
No, because Steve, all the years that I've been in Miami during the Troubles, we'd been stopped many, many times, and even on occasions we would quite often have a bottle of whiskey in the van for going home, and we would offer the guys, would they like a drop of whiskey? That often happened.
This would be to soldiers or UDR,
soldiers, whoever, because we just felt these guys are doing a job. That's all they're doing. Yeah. So at the time of the actual being stopped on the night in question, we didn't suspect anything at the beginning.
But we were a mixed band.
We were a mixed band of Protestants and Catholics, and we got on like a house on fire, every one of us. There was never any question about colour, creed, religion, or anything. So.
A British Army officer arrived and took charge of the operation.
Correct.
And you and I were concerned about our instruments, and we both at different stages went back to ask them to be careful. This is the only thing we carried were the 2 guitars and the saxophone.
That's right. Yeah.
You were concerned about it.
Well, I was concerned about my saxophone, and I decided to ask them that could I go to the van and take my saxophone out and put it on the road, which I did. So I opened the case up and I let them see that it was a saxophone. Now, what actually, I was third in the row. We were all lined up against the ditch, and I happened to be third in the row. But instead of going back to where I was, I went to the end of the line, which was next to the minibus.
Yes.
And as you said, they were putting a 10-pound bomb in the van. That blew up prematurely.
That's right.
And I was blown into the ditch. Now, I believe, and going to where I was at the end of the line, that saved my life.
Although you were closer to this bomb. I mean, while they were laughing and joking with us, we never realised for a second that this was going to happen.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's massive. I felt like I was in the air. I tried to run, but I was already in the air. But we crashed down into the field.
Into a field.
It was about 10 feet down.
That's right.
From us.
That's right.
And tell me how you escaped.
Well, basically what happened to me, I was a big fan of the Vietnamese war movies, Vietnam. And I remember the American GIs, they used to play dead. So what I did is I lay face down in the grass and held my breath for as long as I could.
Beside the ditch? Beside
the ditch. Now what had happened, because of the impact of the bomb exploding in the van, there was a fire. And the fire caught all the ditch and caught the grass. Yes. And the fire was coming closer and closer to me. And I called out the names, and I could hear no response from Fran, Brian, and Tony. I could hear you were still alive. I could hear you. There was like a moan. You were moaning at the time. And what I decided to do was, as the grass was burning right up close to me, I had to get out of there, otherwise I was going to burn alive.
Yes.
And I said to you that I'm going to go and get help.
Yes, you did.
And I ran up the embankment, and there was a lorry on the main road with a guy and a big trailer on the back. And I asked him, could he take me into Newry Police Station? And he thought I was part of the whole setup. He refused to take me.
Yes.
There was a young couple who came along then in a car, and they took me. But I was still so panicky and so worried, I held on to the handle of the door just in case they weren't going into Newry, and I would jump out of the car. But thank God they took me into Newry Police Station, and I went in and reported the whole thing to the police. There was a lady on duty that night, and I had never smoked a cigarette in my life, and the first thing I asked her for was a cigarette. And I began serious smoking for months after that.
And you were seriously traumatised from that.
Seriously traumatised. I had shrapnel in my leg, so they escorted me into Daisy Hill Hospital, where you were.
Yeah.
And they extracted the metal out of my knee, and I was taken back to the police station. But I'll never forget, on the actual night when I was placed in a room after I had reported the tragedy, and a doctor was brought in to me. And I was so panicky about everything that was going on around me, I didn't trust anybody. And the doctor came in, and he saw how confused I was, and he offered me tablets. Yes. And a glass of water. And I, at that stage, wasn't trusting anybody. I took the tablets and I put them in my sock, and I drank the water.
Yes.
He came back and he asked me that question, a few questions about the scene and all that, and I was panicking. I said, can't you get people out there? You know, there's people injured and all that type of thing. And I was told, we cannot send anybody out there at the moment because we have to go in with a helicopter and survey the area first before anybody can move in case we're attacked.
Yes.
So he came back into the room about an hour later, and he gave me more tablets. Once again, I put them in my sock and I drank the water because I just didn't trust anybody.
Well, it wasn't just the impact of the bomb that and the fall into the field.
Yeah.
You had watched your great friends being slaughtered because they jumped down into the field after us.
Yes.
Not to leave any witnesses to this.
Yes.
And you saw the terrible murder, one by one, of Fran O'Toole, Brian McCoy, who was lying next to me, and Tony Geraghty. And they were particularly badly
it was a horrific death.
As the time went, as we began then with the HET inquiry into the historical inquiries into the terrible things that went on in various cases, we discovered that there was dreadful collusion, that it wasn't just a bunch of thugs that were in the north, in UVF people, that there was British Army and the police, the RUC, UDR, the British Army and the police force were all complicit in the murder of our
It was
friends. Very well planned to make us look like
to
terrorists.
The finest detail.
And we would have every young person in Ireland would have been framed forever. Then after that, they would have.
We were being accused of carrying bombs. That was the whole plan.
And since then, I've often said, when I met Desley, he was a writer, and I think in the best possible way now, I say this is a writer come fighter, because you are now, with myself, you've taken a case against the Chief Constable of the PSNI and the British Ministry of Defence for the murder of our friend and for our attempted murders.
For our attempted murders, and also for what it has done, I'm sure, to you and to me and to my family, what it has caused to my family down through the years. And I'm just, I'm so grateful that we got this justice in the end. But I'm so sorry that my late wife Brenda wasn't there to see the eventual conclusion.
Well, for the sake of Brenda and for my wife, who was badly traumatised.
Correct.
For ourselves, our lives have been destroyed for 40 years. We will get the truth, and we will get justice.
Please,
real
God.
Justice eventually. Des, the fight goes on, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, and we'll be there to the end.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you.